The battle had raged for months. Fleet after fleet of Androvian warships had attacked human space, seeking to conquer every star system they could. But Captain Marcus Hale and his crew aboard the USS Valor would not yield. They fought with courage, skill, and a fierce pride in what it meant to be human. On the morning of the final engagement, the sky above the plains of Cythora Prime was black with enemy ships. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Valor, his hands steady on the rail of the command platform. Below him, the rest of the human armada formed a wide semicircle. When he gave the order, shuttlecraft and fighters launched into the void like a swarm of silver hornets. Explosions lit up the darkness. Laser beams slashed across open space. In one swift move, Marcus directed the Valor toward the enemy flagship. A perfectly aimed missile strike tore through the Androvian vessel's main drive core. The ship tore itself apart, sending burning debris flying in all directions. With the enemy flagship destroyed, the Androvian fleet faltered. Human ships pressed their attack. One by one, the remaining warships fell or surrendered. At the height of the battle, Marcus felt a sudden calm. All noise and lights faded. It was as if the universe held its breath. Then the enemy forces lowered their shields. A roar rose from the human fleet, exhausted, exhilarated, victorious. As the dust settled, Marcus ordered his ship to cease fire. He watched countless fighters loop overhead in slow victory passes. Smoke trailed behind them like dark ribbons in the early light. Overhead, the rising sun cast a pale glow on the battered remains of the battlefield. Word came that the Grand Council of Cythera wished to welcome humanity as allies, not as conquerors. For centuries, the Scytheran Empire had guarded the edge of known space, curbing threats beyond. When their own fleets had failed, they invited humans to join their cause. Now, with the Androvian menace gone, it was time to form a new alliance. A week later, Marcus found himself standing in the Great Hall of Echoes. The ceiling arched high above, veined with glowing crystal that pulsed with soft blues and greens. Silver pillars rose in neat rows, carved with scenes of Cythora's ancient heroes. Centuries of history weighed upon those stones, and Marcus felt a thrill of awe. At the far end of the hall sat the Grand Council. 7 elders, robed in white and gold, looked down from a raised dais. Their faces were calm and grave. To the side, 3 royal sisters waited behind a silk curtain. Each princess wore the robes of her house, one of deep violet, one of sunrise orange, and one of midnight blue. The council leader, an old woman named Marith, spoke first. Her voice echoed in the hall like wind across glass. "Captain Marcus, Hale of the United Earth Fleet," she intoned. "We honor you as the first of your kind to defend our people in their darkest hour. As is our ancient custom, you shall be granted one of our royal daughters in marriage to seal our new bond." Murmurings rippled through the crowd. Humans and Cythorans alike exchanged glances. Marcus took a steady breath. He had trained for diplomacy as well as battle, but nothing prepared him for the weight of choosing a bride before so many witnesses. Silence fell as the silk curtain drew back. 3 figures stepped forward. The first was Princess Eloria, tall and slender, with eyes the color of desert sand. Her hair fell in perfect waves of platinum white. She carried herself with quiet grace. The second was Princess Mariah, her skin like burnished copper, her robes shimmering with golden threads. A gentle smile curved her lips. The third figure, Princess Zarin, moved with a nervous sort of energy. Her skin bore faint scars, and her facial features bore the marks of a childhood illness. Her hair was a tangled mass of dark curls. She wore simple robes of deep green, not the fine silks of her sisters. All eyes turned to Marcus. The council waited. The crowd waited. 3 princesses waited. Marcus stepped forward. He swept a respectful bow to the council, then stood tall before the sisters. He studied each of them carefully. Eloria's gaze was proud and steady. Mariah's smile was warm but reserved. Zarin's eyes darted around as if she expected someone to laugh at her. In that moment, Marcus saw something in Princess Zarin. Maybe it was her honest nervousness, the way she held her chin up despite the slight tremor in her hands. He remembered His own childhood friends, some plain, some scarred by accident or sickness, and how he loved them just the same. His training told him to choose the best alliance. His heart told him to choose Zarin. He cleared his throat. I choose Princess. Zarin. A gasp broke from the audience. Even the council leaned forward in surprise. Marcus felt every pair of eyes burn into him. Zarin's soft green eyes met his. In them he saw relief and something else. Hope. An elder rose, robes whispering over marble steps. It was Elder Kaith, a stern man with silver hair tied in a tight knot. He frowned. Captain Hale, he said coldly, are you certain? You have refused two of our fairest daughters. Marcus held Kaith's gaze. I am certain, he replied. Princess Zarin showed me the courage to stand before us, all even though she feared our judgment. I respect that courage. A murmur spread through the hall. Some nodded in approval, but others shook their heads. The council conferred in low voices while Zarin's sisters exchanged worried looks. Marcus stood behind Zarin now, one hand lightly, touching her arm. She did not pull away. After a tense moment, Elder Mareth spoke again. So be it. The union is declared. She raised her hands, and crystal lights flared above. A soft chime echoed, and the hall filled with the glow of 1,000 dancing stars. A red carpet unrolled from the dais. Marcus and Zarin walked forward, together side by side into the new future. Whispers followed them, some kind, some cruel, but they did not look back. The choice had been made. As the ceremony ended, Marcus felt his heart pound with excitement and nerves. He did not know what lay ahead, but he knew he would not walk it alone. Princess Zarin, the one whom none expected him to choose, now stood with him as ally, partner, and perhaps in time, something more. Outside the hall, the crowd cheered. Human Marines clapped Marcus on the back. Cithran nobles bowed their heads. Somewhere in the noise, Zarin's voice floated to him. Thank you, Marcus smiled. Thank you for letting me choose, he whispered. Beneath that simple exchange lay the promise of an even greater adventure. One born not of looks or titles, but of respect, trust, and the belief that true strength comes from the heart. And so began the first day of their shared journey, one that would test them both in ways neither could yet imagine. The Royal Cruiser, Aurora's Grace, loomed at the Scytheran spaceport like a jewel suspended against the black sky. Its hull was sleek, colored in midnight blue with veins of silver light tracing elegant patterns. Marcus Hale stood on the gangway as the boarding ramps descended, flanked by two silent guards. Princess Zarin followed, her posture tense but determined. Each step she took echoed softly across the metal floor. Inside the cruiser's grand foyer, soft lanterns cast a golden glow on polished floors. Servants in simple tunics moved in hushed order, carrying trays of exotic fruits and scented teas. Zarin's sisters, Princess Aloria and Princess Miriah, stood apart with their own retinues whispering behind their fans. Across the room, human officers in crisp uniforms watched with polite curiosity. Marcus guided Zarin toward the dining hall, his hand lightly on the small of her back, a gesture of courtesy he hoped would comfort her. The dining hall was spacious, with tall windows looking out onto the starfield. A long table of polished obsidian was laid with plates of glimmering silver and crystal goblets filled with violet nectar. Soft music played from hovering orbs that drifted near the ceiling. Zarin hesitated at the entrance. She smoothed her simple robes, took a steady breath, and offered Marcus a small, nervous smile. He returned it with an encouraging nod. They sat side by side near the center of the table. On the other side of Zarin, Aloria lifted an eyebrow and raised her goblet. Princess Zarin, she said in a cool voice, do you find the human fare agreeable? I hear they favor salt in great measure. Zarin's cheeks reddened. She picked at a slice of bread, then replied in a soft voice, it is different, but I shall try. She bit timidly, then closed her eyes for a moment. Actually, it is quite good. One of Zarin's attendants shifted uncomfortably. Across the table, Miriah said, Salt? Fascinating. I prefer subtler flavors. Myself. Her tone was polite, but her eyes flicked toward Zarin with pity. Marcus placed a warm hand on Zarin's. It's delicious, he said. Try the spiced fish, it's one of my favorites. He reached for a slice, offering it to her. She accepted gratefully, and her face lit up as the flavors touched her tongue. The hall fell silent as everyone watched her reaction. A murmur spread like wildfire. Human officers exchanged impressed looks. Some Sithoran nobles whispered about the human champion's kindness. Others shook their heads, muttering that Zarin was lucky to have found such a protector. One elder noblewoman tutted softly. If only she had chosen a more suitable bride. Zarin pressed her lips together, but she did not look away. Instead, she met Marcus's gaze. He gave her a small, reassuring smile. She nodded, as though saying thank you. Dinner continued under a veil of quiet conversation. The music drifted through the air and the lanterns flickered like gentle fireflies. Marcus learned that Zarin loved simple stories of distant stars and old Sithoran folktales. She spoke softly about her childhood on the palace's lower levels, where she helped heal wounded citizens with primitive nanite treatments. When she spoke of her work, her voice grew stronger, her eyes more alive. At one point, Eloria broke in. Your projects sound ambitious, she said, her voice edged with sarcasm. Do you really believe these machines can match the ancient healers of our royal houses? Zarin's hand trembled, but she drew a steady breath. I believe that healing comes from both science and compassion, she replied. The machines are tools, but the heart guides them. I have seen them work where old methods have failed. Eloria scoffed, but Mariah leaned forward, curiosity softening her expression. Tell me more, she said. Zarin's face warmed as she shared a story of a village struck by plague. Her nanites had repaired damaged tissue and purged toxins, restoring health when no healer would venture near. Marcus watched her speak, struck by her quiet authority. When dinner ended, servants cleared the table and brought in fresh fabrics for the princess's quarters. The hallway outside was lined with tapestries depicting Sithora's history, great battles, majestic rulers, and scenes of peace under starlit skies. Marcus escorted Zarin along the corridor, his uniform boots clicking in time with her soft steps. Outside her door, Zarin paused. She looked up at Marcus, her green eyes filled with uncertainty. Captain Hale, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I worry that I have disappointed you. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. You could never disappoint me, he replied gently. You have shown nothing but courage and honesty. That is what matters most. She exhaled, a soft sigh of relief. Thank you, she murmured, then stepped inside her room. The door slid shut, and Marcus stood alone in the quiet hallway. He heard faint sobbing from within, and his heart clenched. He wondered at the burdens Zarin carried, scars not only of flesh but of doubt and isolation. As he turned to leave, a soft voice drifted beneath the door. Captain, will you visit? Marcus hesitated, then nodded to the empty hallway. I will, he whispered. Down in the officers' lounge, human soldiers and Sithoran courtiers exchanged animated gossip. Some praised Marcus's choice as a bold act of compassion. Others criticized him for tarnishing the royal image. A Sithoran nobleman spat, He has chosen pity over power. A human lieutenant countered, He has chosen truth over vanity. Voices rose. In the midst of it all, Marcus remained calm. He knew there would be challenges, not just from outside, but from within. Whispers and rumors could erode alliances, faster than any enemy fleet. Yet he believed in Zarin's strength and in the bond they had begun to forge. Back in her quarters, Zarin stood by a wide window, watching the stars drift past. Her simple room was decorated with a few personal touches. A stack of worn books, a small plant in a clay pot, and a sketch of a distant nebula. She fingered the edges of a cloth banner woven with her family's crest. A soft knock came at the door. Marcus entered, carrying 2 cups of steaming tea. He offered one to her, and she accepted with a shy smile. They sat by the window, sipping in companionable silence. Outside, the cruiser's engines thrummed softly, carrying them away from Sithora and toward new horizons. Zarin broke the silence. "I have always hidden behind my work," she said. "I thought it was safer that way. But today, I felt seen." Marcus turned to her. "You were always seen, Princess. I just had to look." She looked at him, and for the first time, her guard slipped completely away. In the soft glow of the starlit window, two figures, one human, one alien, found a moment of peace in a universe that still held so many mysteries. The journey ahead would test them both in ways they could not yet imagine. But in the fragile bond formed that evening, they found the courage to face the whispers, the judgments, and the uncertainties of their new life together. And as the tea grew cold in their cups, they both realized that this was only the beginning. The royal cruiser Aurora's Grace cut through the silent void toward Illyria Prime, where the peace summit would seal the human-Scytheran alliance. Captain Marcus Hale stood on the deck beside Princess Zarin, watching distant stars drift past. The wide observation window. The long journey offered rare quiet moments, but both felt tension in the air. For days, Zarin and Marcus walked the cruiser's corridors together. They spoke of their hopes and their fears for the future. Zarin shared secret schematics of her nanite designs, and Marcus described human tactics against the Androvian threat. Each learned new respect for the other's strengths, yet neither could fully relax. Danger still lurked among the remnants of the defeated Androvian fleet. Late one evening, alarms shattered the calm. Red lights flashed, and klaxons blared as a voice announced, "Unknown ships approaching at high velocity." Marcus raced to the bridge, Zarin at his side. The main view screen showed a swarm of battered Androvian fighters breaking from stealth. Their hulls were scorched and energy weapons discharged in wild arcs. They had nothing to lose. "Defensive formation," Marcus ordered. Human cruisers and Scytheran escorts slipped into position around the Aurora's Grace. Laser batteries ignited, and missile tubes opened fire. Still, the Androvian drones closed fast, flying like angry hornets. Zarin did not shrink back. Instead, she slipped past the bridge guards toward the engineering access hatch. "Marcus," she called over the roar, "I need to be in the reactor control bay." He grabbed her arm. "It's too dangerous. Trust me," Zarin said, her voice firm. "I know this ship's systems. I can help." Marcus nodded, trusting his choice. He raised his voice. "Lieutenant Hendricks, cover the rear passage. I want everyone else on shields and weapons." He turned back to Zarin. "Go." Zarin darted down the corridor as blaster fire pounded bulkheads behind her. Sparks rained from overhead conduits. She reached the engineering hatch, sealed it behind her, and dropped into the lower decks. The ship's organs lay exposed in dim, red light. Power conduits pulsed, coolant pipes hissed, and the reactor core glowed with fierce intensity. A technician yelled, "Princess Zarin, they've disabled the secondary coolant loop." Alarms shrieked. The reactor temperature climbed. Too fast. The ship would suffer a meltdown in minutes if they could not reroute power. Zarin knelt by the control panel, her fingers flying over holokeys. She traced complex diagrams she had memorized, bypassing damaged relays and redirecting coolant flow. Sparks leapt from a broken conduit, but she stayed calm, voice steady as she coached the engineers. "Unlock manifold 3, then engage the bypass protocol now." The coolant loop hissed back to life. The core temperature stabilized. Mechanical arms adjusted valves. A cheer rose among the engineers. But there was no time for relief. Explosions rocked the deck as an Androvian missile struck the hull. A bulkhead shuddered and burning debris tumbled near Zarin. She grabbed a nearby engineer and shoved him out of the way. Her robe caught fire at the hem, but she ripped it off and stamped out the flames. She returned to the panel without a pause. On the bridge, Marcus fought back his own panic. Weapon banks were reloading too slowly. Shields flickered under sustained fire. He needed more power diverted to defenses, but that would starve the engines and leave them sitting targets. Suddenly, the engineering channel crackled. "Captain, Princess Zarin has the reactor under control." She says we can give you a 50% power boost if you reroute to her panel. Marcus seized the chance. Do it, he told the communications officer. Then he barked into the intercom. Power to shields and thrusters, half from main reactor, half from auxiliary link. On the deck below, engineers engaged the link. The cruiser shuddered as energies shifted. Shields flared brighter and the engines hummed with new thrust. The Aurora's grace lurched forward, engines blazing. On the view screen, Androvian fighters were hurled aside like rag dolls. Back in engineering, Zarin slumped against the bulkhead, breath uneven. A technician knelt beside her. You saved us, he said, awe in his voice. Zarin simply nodded, wiping sweat and soot from her brow. Moments later, she felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. She looked up to see Marcus, grime marking his cheeks. He offered a small smile. That was incredible, he said. He helped her to her feet. You kept us alive. Zarin's green eyes glistened. I just did what I could. They climbed together back toward the bridge. As they emerged, the corridors were calm once more. Human and Sithoran crew members offered nods of respect. The cruiser's wounded hull groaned, but the crisis had passed. On the bridge, Marcus studied the view screen. The last Androvian fighters fled into the distance. Behind them, Scytheran vessels and human cruisers formed a protective screen. The summit trip could continue, if trust held. He turned to Zarin. You were right, he said quietly. No one else could have done that. She looked away, cheeks pink. I only hoped I wouldn't fail you. He reached out and brushed a strand of dark hair from her face. You could never fail, he said. Today you showed your true strength. A hush settled over the bridge as crew members absorbed the moment. Marcus cleared his throat. Report damage, he ordered. Systems engineers answered in turn. Power grid 85%, shields at 90%, engines at 70%. Casualties were light. The only serious injuries were in engineering, and every one of those wounded owed their life to Zarin's quick thinking. In the hours that followed, Marcus and Zarin toured the damaged sections together. Everywhere they went, crew members paused to thank Zarin or offer a salute. Even some skeptical Sithoran officers now bowed to her, eyes bright with newfound respect. As they returned to her quarters, Marcus said, I think the whispers have changed. Zarin laughed softly. From pity to admiration, that is a good start. Marcus opened her door. Inside, the room was lit by a single lantern. Fresh linens were piled on the bed, and a basin of water sat on the table. Zarin paused at the threshold. Marcus, she said, voice low. Today, I saw more of what it means to be human, and what it means to be a Scytheran. I have learned from you and you from me. I hope our people learn the same. He stepped inside and gently closed the door. They will, he promised. Because they saw us fight side by side. She smiled at him, the flickering lantern light softening her features. Thank you, she whispered. He lifted her hand to his lips. Thank you for trusting me, he replied. In that quiet moment, they both felt the bond deepen. Trials had tested their courage and trust, and they had passed together. Ahead lay new challenges at the Peace Summit, but neither doubted they would face them united. And as the stars wheeled beyond the window, two figures, one human, one alien, prepared to show the galaxy what true partnership could achieve. The grand halls of Illyria Prime's Council Palace gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Delegates from dozens of worlds filled the galleries, their voices rising in polite conversation. Banners of human and Scythoran alliance hung side by side, bright against marble pillars. Captain Marcus Hale and Princess Zarin walked together down the central aisle, each step echoing with promise and danger. As they reached the dais, High Chancellor Elandra of Illyria rose to welcome them. Her robes were white and silver, trimmed, with tiny gemstones that caught the light. Welcome, friends of Sithora and Earth, she announced. May this summit mark the end of war and the dawn of lasting peace. Applause rippled through the hall. Marcus bowed and Zarin gave a small, graceful curtsy. The first day's agenda was formal: speeches, treaty drafts, and ceremonial handshakes. Yet under the polished surface, tensions simmered. Some delegations mistrusted Scythera's ancient influence. Others feared human ambition. A faction known as the Red Star Collective, survivors of Androvian rule, pressed for harsh terms against former enemies. They believed only total victory could secure peace, and they loathed compromise. During a break, Zarin guided Marcus through a side corridor to a small, private chamber. The walls were lined with alcoves holding delicate star maps and ancient artifacts. "I have something to show you," she said, voice low. She touched a concealed panel, and a wall segment shifted to reveal a hidden lab. Soft lights revealed humming machines, glowing vials, and intricate schematics pinned to a board. Marcus stepped inside, astonished. "What is this place?" Zarin's green eyes glowed. "My secret workshop," she replied. "No one else knows." She pointed to a crystalline vial. "These are my nanite prototypes, self-replicating machines I designed to heal tissue at the cellular level." On the board, diagrams showed how the nanites could target diseases, repair damage, and even neutralize toxins. Marcus ran a hand over the smooth tabletop. "This is incredible, but why hide it?" Zarin inhaled deeply. "Because my family feared misuse. The royal line of bioengineers has guarded these secrets for generations. They said I was too reckless, too young. They told me to stay safe behind palace walls." She turned to him. "I had to prove myself worthy." He studied her face. The scars on her cheeks were faint now under soft lantern light. "You already proved yourself today, and yesterday, and the day before." She shook her head. "There is more." She lifted a hollow slate from the table. It displayed genetic data and energy resonance patterns. "My plague scars were part of my testing. I used myself as the first trial, pushing the nanites to adapt to real damage. Only then could I trust them on others." Marcus's breath caught. "You risked your life?" Zarin nodded. "To know they worked, to know I could save lives." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You are the bravest person I know." Suddenly, distant shouts echoed through the hallway. Marcus and Zarin exchanged worried glances. Zarin motioned for quiet. They slipped back into the corridor and followed the voices to the main summit chamber. Doors stood open, revealing a scene of chaos. Red Star delegates had seized control of the speaker's platform. They brandished energy pistols and shouted demands for the arrest of certain Scytheran elders. Panic spread among the delegates. Security guards formed a loose barrier, their blasters unsteady in their hands. High Chancellor Elandra raised her hands. "Stand down," she commanded. But the collective leader, a scarred Androvian survivor named Torvak, sneered. "No peace with monsters," he spat. "We demand justice." Marcus stepped forward, but a guard blocked his path. Zarin put a hand on his arm. "Let me handle this," she whispered. He hesitated, then nodded. Zarin moved into the chamber, her robes fluttering. She raised her voice calm and clear. "Enough." The crowd turned. "I understand your pain. I have known it myself." She swept aside her outer cloak, revealing the faint shimmer of her nanite-infused skin beneath. Gasps rippled through the hall. "I am proof of hope. I am scarred, but I stand here alive because of these machines." Torvak pointed his pistol at her. "Lies." Zarin closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and spoke softly. "If you want proof, come closer." She held out her arm. "Test me." The hall stilled. Torvak hesitated, confusion flickering in his eyes. A young delegate whispered to him. Slowly, Torvak lowered his weapon and stepped forward. Zarin extended her forearm. On the spot, his guard snapped. He slapped a resonator patch to her skin. A faint glow pulsed as nanites scanned his energy field, then withdrew. A silence hung as seconds passed. Finally, Zarin tapped the resonator. A soft hum filled the room. She placed a healing orb, another of her hidden devices, against the pad. Light spread over her arm, then over Torvak's hand. A breeze of warm energy touched his skin. He watched, wide-eyed. The nearest guard's deep cuts from an earlier scuffle faded before all eyes. Bruises vanished. Gasps turned to stunned silence, then to cheers. Delegates rushed forward, murmuring in wonder. Torvak stared at his healed hand. He glanced at Zarin, eyes wet. He dropped the pistol. You saved me," he whispered. Zarin knelt beside him. "Only because I chose to," she replied. Marcus joined them on the platform, then lifted his voice. "This is our new future, healing instead of hatred, unity instead of fear." He looked to Zarin. "Thanks to her, we have hope." Delegates from many worlds nodded, tears glistening on cheeks. The Red Star Collective laid down their arms. Security moved in to restore order, but now with respectful gestures. High Chancellor Elandra reclaimed her gavel. "Let us resume." In the quiet that followed, contracts were quickly amended to include programs for healing and technology sharing. Zarin's nanites would be studied under joint supervision. Marcus watched as the treaty was signed by dozens of leaders, each impressed by the display of trust and compassion. Later that evening, in a private ceremony, Chancellor Elandra presented Zarin with a ceremonial sash woven from Illyrian star metal threads. "You have given us more than peace," Elandra said. "You have given us the gift of life." She draped the sash over Zarin's shoulders. The princess's eyes shone with pride and relief. As Marcus and Zarin stepped out onto the palace balcony, the twin moons of Illyria rose over the gardens below. Lanterns hung from crystalline trees, and fountains of glowing water sang in soft chorus. The night air was cool and sweet. Zarin leaned into Marcus's side. "Today I revealed my true self," she said softly. "I feared the cost." He wrapped an arm around her. "I never doubted you, and now the galaxy knows your worth." She smiled, her scars catching moonlight like silver filigree. "Thank you for believing in me." He kissed her forehead. "Always." Below them, the garden lights pulsed in time with distant celebrations. The hidden legacy had become a new beacon for all worlds. And as the Alliance took its first true steps, Marcus and Zarin stood ready, united by trust, guided by compassion, and prepared to shape a future that no one had dared to imagine before. The sun rose over Illyria Prime, painting the sky in soft pink and gold. In the palace plaza, thousands of people gathered to celebrate the new Human-Scytheran alliance. Human banners flew beside Scytheran standards. Music filled the air, smiles, and laughter drifted through the crowd like warm wind. At the center of the plaza stood a raised stage of white marble. Captain Marcus Hale and Princess Zarin ascended together, hand in hand. Behind them, delegates from dozens of worlds took their seats, each wearing the new alliance colors of silver and emerald. The cheering grew louder as Marcus and Zarin reached the dais. Their presence was a powerful symbol, a human soldier beside an alien princess who had once been judged for her looks. High Chancellor Elandra stepped forward to speak. Her voice rang clear. "Today we mark a new era of peace and hope. Let the courage of one human and the compassion of one princess inspire us all. United, we will reach the stars together." She gestured to Marcus and Zarin. "To our envoy couple, may your partnership guide the galaxy." As cameras floated through the plaza to capture the moment, Zarin touched Marcus's arm. "Are you ready?" she whispered. He smiled. "With you, I am always ready." Chancellor Elandra raised her hands. "Now, Princess Zarin will reveal her true form as a sign of trust." The crowd hushed. Zarin closed her eyes for a moment, then stepped forward. She lifted her arms, and the nanite devices she wore glowed softly. Light washed over her face and arms. When it faded, her scars were gone. In their place was smooth, unblemished skin that shimmered like moonlit water. A gasp rose from the crowd, followed by a cheer. Children waved small alliance flags. Elders wept with joy. Zaren's hair shone like spun silver. Her eyes, bright green as ever, held pride and peace. She bowed gracefully to the assembled worlds. Marcus stepped forward and knelt beside her. "This is the power of acceptance," he said, "of looking beyond the surface to the heart within." The cheering grew until it felt as if the air itself was dancing. Human and Sithoran Marines marched in formation behind the dais. Starships in low orbit performed a silent salute, firing bursts of colored plasma that bloomed like fireworks in the sky. Below, fountains sprayed glowing water in time to the music. After the celebration, Marcus and Zaren stepped down from the stage. They walked through the cheering crowd, accepting gifts and tokens of unity. Woven ribbons from Illyrian artisans, metal emblems engraved with Earth's map, flowers from distant worlds. Everywhere they went, people reached out to touch Zaren's restored arm or to shake Marcus's hand. That evening, a formal dinner was held in the grand hall. Long tables groaned with dishes from every world: spiced fruits, crystal noodles, roasted game from Sithoran forests, delicate pastries infused with human chocolate. Laughter and music rose under the high dome, where holographic stars twinkled overhead. Seated at the head table, Marcus and Zaren watched as diplomats spoke in many languages. Some offered to fund Zaren's healing research. Others invited humans to share in Scytheran cultural festivals. The mood was hopeful and bright. Zaren raised her glass of violet nectar and tapped it gently against Marcus's. "To us," she said, her voice soft but clear. "We did this together." Marcus smiled. "And together we will keep it." He drank, and the guests echoed the toast. Later, after the dinner ended, Marcus escorted Zaren to a quiet balcony overlooking the city lights. The air was cool. Distant, music floated up from the plaza, and searchlights sketched gentle patterns in the dark sky. Zaren leaned against the railing. "I never imagined so many worlds would join us," she said. Marcus wrapped an arm around her. "Your bravery moved them, and your heart guided me." She looked up at him. "And you believed in me before anyone else." They stood there in silence for a moment, watching the lights dance. Then Zaren placed a hand on Marcus's chest. "What does the future hold for us?" He kissed her hand. "A galaxy of possibilities. We will travel to new worlds, share our knowledge, and build schools for healing. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves, and we will do it side by side." Her smile was bright enough to rival the stars. "Side by side," she echoed. The next morning, a new vessel awaited them in orbit, the USS Unity. Its hull was a blend of human and Scytheran design. Sleek earth lines mingled with Scytheran crystal filaments. Marcus and Zaren stood on the bridge as the ship prepared for its maiden voyage. Crew members from both cultures moved with easy cooperation. Marcus donned his uniform jacket, its emblem now bearing the merged seals of Earth and Sithora. Zaren fastened her sash of Illyrian star metal, the ends brushing her restored sleeves. They climbed to the command platform together. The pilot acknowledged them with a salute. "Ready for departure, Captain?" the pilot asked. Marcus glanced at Zaren, then replied, "Ready." The engines hummed to life. The ship's crystal veins glowed emerald as thrusters flared. Outside the viewport, space spread vast and inviting. As USS Unity lifted off, Marcus placed a hand on Zaren's. "Where to first?" She studied the stars. "To worlds that need us most." He nodded. "Then let us begin." Together, the human soldier and the princess, once judged for her appearance, now celebrated for her spirit, steered their ship toward the endless frontier. The cheers of billions echoed in their memories, a promise that unity, trust, and compassion could shape the destiny of every world. And so, hand in hand, they forged a new legend, the true power of looking past the surface to the soul beneath.